morning YouTube, and welcome to something a little bit different today. And the only reason I'm doing this video is I've had a lot of messages from people asking what's going on with this car, what's going on with that car. So I thought I'd give you guys a bit of an insight or an update on what's going to be happening with the cars over the next couple of months. So first of all, the e46 M3, probably out of all of them, well not probably, it is my favourite car out of the lot. Yes, it's not the fastest, especially in today's times, but it just delivers such goodness when you drive it. As you've probably seen from the last couple of videos where I took it to North Coast 500 where it delivered 1800 miles absolutely perfectly. But it is an old car now, so things are starting to get tired on it. Obviously just ticked over 90,000 miles while we was on the trip. Steering wheel being the first one, you can start to see where unfortunately the lever is letting go a little bit in places, but like I say, it does get used. It is a car that for many people was a daily driver before I bought it, so you expect things that make contact to wear out. The other thing is the dash trims. Now this has been something on my radar for probably the last 2 years now, and I keep putting it off because to remove these door strips you've got to take the door cards off. They got the airbags in them. The car will just look a mess for a couple of weeks while it's in the body shop, so I put it off. But what happened was a couple of years ago while I was on holiday, the mirror unfortunately started leaking, the auto dimming mirror, which is a common problem with the e46s when it gets hot. And what it's done is it's like brake fluid, it's reacted with all the paint on the center console. Thankfully it's not going to be a difficult job to fix, it'll just be removing it all, but I'm still undecided on what colour to go for. I mean, if you guys have got any ideas, sensible ideas, obviously drop it down in the comments. But what I'm thinking is either gloss black like we've done with the e92, or the other option was to go with silver grey. I think it could be a nice contrast between the inside and the outside, because this sort of, again, Jewish racing gold like I had in the e92 is not to my sort of taste, so that will be getting replaced. The other thing that's become probably a little bit annoying more than anything is the SMG stick. This like chrome plating has started to pick away, so I don't want to change the design because I've seen people use Momo stuff and it just it's not for me. I like the OEM stuff, or at least an OEM plus. So I'm toying with sending the original plastic shifter away, remove it all and take it to a machine shop and see if they can make one out of Ali and do like a machined look to it. But I'll see how I get on with that over the next couple of months. If by some bizarre reason I end up bored and want to take it apart and take it to a machine shop, we'll see if we can get that sort of upgraded with an OEM plus. So yeah, it should be pretty cool. Other thing, rear right hand tyre, I've got rear wheel, I've got some paint flake. It looks like clear lacquers coming off the tyre. They are tired, I would say. The finish on them is a bit flat. So as for those who watched the e92 video, I'll get them down to Stan at ProCraft, just go back to a nice clean silver again. I'm going to stick with the Super Sports. I like the tyre, I like the dry grip, I like the way they're playful, whereas the 4S has sort of taken a little bit of the fun out of the e92 for that. It was really sideways happy, but as a daily driver I'm happy to leave them on the e92. The 4S, again, cracking tyre, but the Super Sport for a weekend toy, for me, I think it's a better tyre. It's more enjoyable, it's got good grip, but it does give nice elements of slip when you need it to. So the other thing I really probably need to do is get the front bumper repainted. I've had some breakfast runs that have given me some stone chips. I definitely need to recoat the splitters because the carbon splitters are absolutely annihilated, especially after North Coast. They are looking a proper state at the moment. So little bits like that are letting the car down, but I do have to tell myself it is a weekend toy. It does get used. It's not a garage queen. It's there for enjoyment. Obviously it's well looked after, warmed up, etc. But when I'm out in it, it's traction off, S6. That's what it's built for. It's my play toy. So the biggest update probably for the e46, I don't know whether I'm going to get around to doing this year. I hope I can, but I've got so many other things on the go. I'm also looking at potentially trying to build a garage down the bottom of the garden, so I've got somewhere to store them all, somewhere to tinker with them properly, keep vlogging for you guys, rather than this sort of driveway scene that you have to live with currently. And what I would like to do is refresh all the suspension. Now it's on stock dampers, I-back springs and the Turner Motorsport anti-roll bars, which the combo's been great. There's a good element of road comfort. The car holds the road incredibly well. It's very predictable on the way it wants to play on the road. So I'm not unhappy with it, but I'd like something a little bit special, like some Nitron or maybe some Öhlins dampers, and then do all the bushes in the front, because I had all the rear done when ETA did the boot floor. I had all the Black Series Powerflex subframe bushes, trailing arm bushes all done. So I'm hoping it's just going to be a case of doing the lollipops on the front and the suspension and potentially wishbones and track rod ends. If that's all tired, it's going to need changing. There's no point in throwing £2,000 to £3,000 at suspension when you've got shag bushes all round. So get it in the air, give a good assessment and breakdown of how it's looking under there. I mean, it's done 90,000 miles, so stuff's getting tired. And something that I did notice towards the end of the trip that I hadn't really paid too much attention to before is I think the engine mounts are on their way out. I've got no knock-in or anything like that, but it just feels a bit on and off the power, like there's probably a bit of movement there. And again, 90,000 miles on them, they get hot, they're bolted directly to the engine, so over time rubber does perish and obviously fail. So maybe look at going with like an uprated Powerflex one. I see they do some fancy ones that are adjustable, but for those that have seen the Clio video or even been out in it, those solid Vibrotechnics mounts, while they're amazing for driving, they are bloody horrible to do any sort of commuting in. Everything rattles, the dash, the steering wheel, and there isn't any interior in that. So I don't really want to turn this car into it, because this car, even with the older Harman Kardon, is still a nice place to be. I say we did 1,800 miles in 4 days to Scotland, and it was brilliant. Whereas in the Clio, 200-300 miles and I'm ready to get out of it and just have it there to look at and take for a short blast. That's enough for that car. But I do want to keep the E46. I've got no plans to get rid of it. I've had it now for over 3 years and I just love it. And the beauty of it is, because it's a weekend toy, it is still enjoyable every time I take it out. So that's sort of a small update on where the E46 is going. Bit of maintenance work. I think I should probably do a compression test on it now. I've got no symptoms, so no detonation feel under acceleration. It pulls really well, but again, seems to be a problem with the E46 or the S54 engine in general. So stay with us. Obviously there will be more updates coming over the winter. It'll be more off the road, because like the Clio, I don't plan to use it in the snow, wet, damp, cold weather. It only just gets caught out in the rain, but it is a fair weather blaster. So the next one to bring everyone up to speed with, obviously the E92 M3, the daily driver, the car that wasn't supposed to be modified. It was supposed to be my A to B commuter, do all the daily duties. Don't customize it, don't get attached to it like the E46, as I said in the intro video.
Follow us on the journey of the daily car. Obviously it won't be getting modified like the E46. I told myself I won't go down that route again, because it terrifies me whenever I take.
So as a lot of you have followed the build would have seen, we did the Alcantara steering wheel, had all the dash trims painted back. The biggest upgrade being the M4 seats, which again have been absolutely fantastic. So glad I did those. Also had the wheels powder coated back to gloss black. I wanted them that colour because the black and white contrast just for me works so well. Then needed new discs and pads. I thought, well, while we're there, might as well uprate them. Z-rated pads, ATE discs and Hell braided lines. So nothing crazy, because I don't want to have things like the E46 with squealing brakes, no dust seals that can't do a winter. So little OEM plus upgrade on that, and then did the Michelin 4S tyres. Now, I'd heard a lot of good things about these, run the Super Sports on the E46 M3, and I was just blown away by them. Like, the wet grip is unbelievable. The tyres that I had on here before were just the Pilot Sports, which were okay, they're not a bad tyre, but get it in the wet and it was borderline dangerous trying to put the power down in anything below 4th. But the 4Ss have just been such a game changer for wet driving, and the dry grip is, for me, as good as the Super Sport. So the car's coming along. As I said, I didn't want to modify it, as for a lot of you have probably seen from the channel, that is always a lie. I end up seeming to modify absolutely everything I touch or buy. So the next upgrade now is to get a bit more mid-range out of the car and a bit more peak power. And the way to do that without going down the route of ploughing thousands into it is pre-cat delete and remap. Should see sort of 20, 30, 40, I think 40 is probably a little optimistic, maybe 20, 30 horsepower in the mid-range and then a little bit more up top. And like I say, you get the benefit of a bit more noise on top of the 2-pipe mod. Should be nice. Looking forward to that. Probably going to go and see Aaron Reeve in Norfolk, so going to be a day out up there. Unfortunately, it's a few 100-mile round trip, but looking forward to seeing if we can increase the mid-range, because it does feel a little bit flat for me, the E92 in the mid-range. Once it's above 6k, flies, but it just feels like it could do with a bit more from 4k, a bit more urgency. So hoping that will bring some positive benefits to the car. And then other than going really balls out and doing an ESS supercharger kit, which just keep looking at those thinking that would be good fun, but I just don't do the miles. And to be honest with you, with the roads I'm on around here, I barely open it up as it is. So I think personally it'll be a bit too much to install one of those kits for the cost, but the performance at 600 plus horsepower would be oh so good. But yeah, we'll obviously be blogging the journey when we get the pre-cats done, the remap done, and see what sort of gains can be had. So looking forward to seeing how the E92 evolves over the next couple of months. So the little Renault Sport Clio has been parked up for a few weeks now. A few of you have messaged me saying, why have I gone quiet after doing so much with the build? This year was supposed to be a big shakedown for it, and to be honest with you, a lot of things outside of the channel, like I said, have just taken up so much of my time. Now, we did have a little setback. Ended up going to the Cotswolds in the Clio, had a brilliant run until just towards the end when I started noticing a bit of a knocking noise coming from the left-hand side, and it sounds like it might be a CV joint in the drive shaft because it's definitely clicking a lot on full lock. So hopefully it's a simple fix, but like I said, I've just been doing Scotland, working on all the other cars. It just hasn't happened, so it's been parked up. Unfortunately, it has been outside for the last 6 weeks, so it's got a few cobwebs on it where it's been abandoned, but don't worry guys, it will be coming back. I have got a short clip to show you what it was like when we did take it out briefly. As a few of you might have seen from Instagram, we've also got the PGR Racing harness bar in the back now. And the reason for that is I started reading into spinal compression and mounting the harnesses to the floor. And in the event of a crash, if your body weight goes forwards and the harnesses are mounted too low, it can compress your whole body and your spine into the seat. Nasty stuff. So the idea is to bring the harness points up to sort of your height of your shoulders, which it now does with this kit. And do you know what, without going for a full roll cage, it's what I wanted. I'm not ready to go full cage with it yet. It's a B-Road Blaster car, it's not a track car, it's not a competition car, it's just something I enjoy going for a hooning and remembering my early days of driving. So as I've said, it's not been forgotten about, it's not been sold, it hasn't been written off or crashed in cup killing season, as everyone says with the ABS as soon as it rains. The 8008R's delivered perfectly in the Cotswolds in the wet, and I was really impressed with the whole car. It has been such a pleasurable thing to drive in moderation. And I say that because it is intense. It's really intense when you're driving along, almost like unbearable on some aspects because it's so noisy. The rattle from that pure motorsport shifter can drive you insane, so you end up finding yourself just holding it while you drive along to shut it up. But there is going to be more work done to the car, like I say, probably not in the near future. I'm looking to go limited slip diff. The car does need to get mapped next year because it is still running just a base calibration, but just sort of let everyone know the cup is fine. It will continue to be used, but like I say, probably not for the next couple of months because I want to keep the salt and everything away from it, because Renaults and BMWs, as I've discovered with my old 320D a few years back, they do rust, and when they do, it is expensive to fix. So it is going to stay as a summer dry time toy. But yeah, just give you a bit of a recap on what's going on with the Clio. The BMW M240i. Well, this little car was a bit of a funny one because the missus needed a BMW. She loved being in the M cars. And the 235i came on the radar first, and then my good friend Matt was like, don't buy one of those. If you've got the money, get the 240i with the B58 engine in it. Much, much better car. And do you know what? Bought it as soon as we picked it up from Coventry. Me and Matt went and collected it from a private sale, still was in manufacturer warranty. And I was like, man, this thing is a capable little car. It is proper point and shoot with the power. The only thing that lets it down is it is a little bit soulless, and I think we'll be able to change that with things like the exhaust, getting it looking a little bit more aggressive. We're not going to go crazy, as I said, because we do plan to keep it in the warranty, so it'll probably be M Performance exhaust. The parts have started arriving. Now, the problem with this is, it's not my car, it's the missus's car, even though I sort of look after it, clean it, do all the work we need to for it. I just keep taking on projects. I just love tinkering with stuff, but I've got to focus on my own stuff. But we have started acquiring the parts. So we've got the M3 sort of look mirrors with the tabs along the top. We've got the high kick spoiler. We've got the grills. The wheels are going to go gloss black. We'll spacer it. We'll lower it, probably on like an I-back spring with a stock damper combo, because I don't need to go mad with it. It's not a track car or anything, just to give it more of a cleaner, aggressive look. And before you lot start saying it, oh, you should have bought an M2. No, because technically, from what we've seen as of late with this new Supra Progress, is the B58 is the engine to have. This car could be made more capable than the M2, not the M2 Comp, the normal M2. And the reason I say that is we went over to Mulgari. I don't know whether any of you have seen the video on their 240i. I mean, it is a £70,000 car, so it's a lot of money, but I think that car shows what these are capable of, as they can be a monstrous little package, well over 400 horsepower, which with a great sound too. Whereas if any of you are familiar with the M3 F80, the M4, the M2 Competition, they don't sound great, and that's the only thing that really stops me buying an F80 M3 at the moment and chopping in the e92, is I think I'd miss that V8. But without going off topic, the car will be getting the changes over the next year, the M Performance kit, body kit wise, and like I say, we'll just be putting a few touches on it. I'd love to put a different set of seats in it, because I really don't like these seats. They're not uncomfortable, they just lack desire, like in the stock E92 ones. But I think it's probably a bit too much again to go through that for a daily driver. But we'll be blogging the journey, obviously, for you guys that are interested in doing a similar sort of thing to your 240i. Hopefully the guides will be informative and allow you to go down the same sort of route if you just sort of fancy an OEM plus look to the car.